There's value in building long-term relationships and doing things the right way. Nikki Boxler applies that philosophy, whether it's her hunting career, shooting, farming, fitness, modeling, or even maple syrup. She has found that sometimes sacrificing short-term gain for building those long-term relationships is the right way to go.
This is the No Excuse to Miss podcast.
Welcome to the No Excuse to Miss podcast. I am your host, Scott Volkwartson. This week's guest seems to do it all: hunting, shooting, fishing, farming, fitness, and maybe my personal favorite, maple syrup. Welcome to the show, Nikki Boxler. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks so much for having me, Scott.
Oh, thanks for coming on. I'm looking forward to it.
Me too.
We were talking offline a little bit. I've always admired, following you on social media, how you seem to dive into so many things without fear. But can you give us some background of who you are?
Yeah, I'll try my best. I'll see what I can do. So I was raised on a dairy farm, born and raised. So we have about 6,000 head of cattle and 6,000 acres. And so growing up, I just always had the mindset, it was given to me from my father and grandfather, that you have to try everything and you got to be able to fix everything, right? So farmers can do a little bit of everything. And so growing up, I was never afraid to jump in and get my hands dirty. And I believe that that's the best way to learn, is by doing it from experience. And don't get me wrong, I share a lot of things, but I also screw up a lot of things. So you got to make mistakes to learn. And that's kind of, I guess, my motto in life.
And you say you have to make mistakes to learn, but so many people are afraid to make those mistakes and afraid to put it out there for fear of what people think. Have you always had that mindset that I'm just going to be me and I don't care, what people may think or what people might say?
I think so. So growing up, like I said, I grew up on a dairy farm. I was always more of a tomboy, and that wasn't really the cool thing, I guess, in school. So when I was in high school, I actually got bullied a lot. I used to come home every day after school crying, begging to transfer schools, and my parents would always say no. So I learned, I guess, from an early age that I just don't fit in. So if I'm going to get bullied even when I try to fit in, then what's the point of, trying to follow and go with the trends when, just do your own thing and actually be happy. So that's kind of what I did at a young age and kind of continued on. So
you mentioned in your bio that you sent me that you had played, was it Division I volleyball?
No, it was D3.
D3,
so,
okay. So,
just a fun college experience.
Yeah, which is still more than what a lot of people do. So how did that work? If you didn't think you kind of fit in, and then trying to fit into the team environment, or did you fit in okay there?
No, so the team is probably where I felt the most at home. And I guess that's why in the outdoor space, there's so many people, and how I kind of connected with you that's what's great about social media, is there's so many people that have things in common. So being on part of a team like the volleyball team, we always had something in common right from the very beginning. So when we first met, in high school and in volleyball, maybe outside of those activities, we didn't really hang out or anything. But when it came to volleyball, we always had something in common, and we always have one goal in common that we were working towards. So it was really easy to get along on the court. And, outside the court, I wasn't really, I guess, friends with people. We were acquaintances, I guess is the best way to put it. But that part of my life came more easily.
So as you transitioned then out of that into, at one point you said you were a fitness model. Where did you get the confidence to do that, given your background a little bit of being bullied? And I feel like a lot of people would, kind of withdraw and not want to put themselves out there to that degree when they've gone through that.
So I guess the crazy part is one of the things that I always got picked on too, part of it was how muscular I was. But there was a girl kind of in my town, and she did fitness modeling. And so I reached out to one of the photographers she was working with, who I didn't really know how big of a deal he was. And so I reached out to him and I sent him some pictures, and he was like, hey, come up, I want to shoot you for a magazine. And that kind of kicked off everything. But I guess I kind of just had the attitude might as well try it. The worst anyone can say is no. And this will give me something to do, not with my life, but like something more that I can actually focus on, as opposed to just coming home and being sad all the time that I don't fit in. So it kind of just gave me something, because I worked out a lot anyways. And I'm like, this might be my route, right? Like, this is maybe where I find my people. So I got into the fitness modeling, and it was really fun. I met a lot of really great people, but as you know, well, you might not know, I guess, but being a female in the fitness industry, at least at that time, because this was about 10 years ago, it was very, very about looks, as opposed to like actually being strong and what you can do on your abilities. So I only did that for a few years because I was more performance focused as opposed to looks focused. And then I kind of just grew out of it because I didn't want to focus on how I looked all the time. I wanted to see what I could actually do and how I could perform. So then I kind of transitioned out of the fitness space and just continued with fitness, but not actually modeling in front of a camera. So my confidence, I guess, to get back to your original question, my confidence wasn't really, I guess, in front of people, which is weird to say, because when I went to a beach, I would still always be completely fully clothed, like fully covered, because I did not have any confidence wearing a bikini in front of people, but I was fine in front of like one person at a time, which was then shared to the world, which is really weird to say. That's like such an interesting mindset. I don't know what's going on up here, but but yeah, so just because I like projected confidence didn't actually mean I was confident on the inside.
Interesting. Yeah, because you would think that if you're willing to do it there, that it'd be easy to walk on a beach or somewhere to that degree.
Yeah, which I kind of think it almost made it a little harder because the people were so used to seeing that image, right, in the magazine or in the store. And I always had like that, I'll use quotations, like that perfect body. And then so you don't always look like that, right? Like not everyone's always looking like that every day of the week, especially the females, like your hormones. You have different cycles, so your body's constantly changing. And so I was always worried that people are going to compare me to what I looked like on a magazine. And so it kind of messed with my head a little bit more.
And that's interesting because a lot of people fall into that comparison trap, but it's typically with themselves versus somebody else they see online. Mm-hmm. But in this case, it was almost you versus the image that was projected online. And like you said, I don't think a lot of people realize when they see somebody at a photo shoot or on stage or whatever it might be, that they don't walk around 365 days a year looking like that. They've usually dieted down or prepared for that particular shoot to get to that level. And many times, and I don't know about like in your career, but many times I find out that those, that's some of the unhealthiest times that they have throughout the year is right before that photo shoot.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And one of the things is that you have to remember, too, when you're looking at these photo shoots or these photos of people on magazines and on billboards is they have perfect lighting, perfect poses. The photographers are taking 1,000+ images just to get that one picture. So that person doesn't just wake up like that. It's funny. I saw a quote, I think somewhere. I don't know if it was really a quote, but I saw it somewhere. They said, like, I don't even look like the person in the magazine because it's so true. Like every day you don't really look like that. So
I want to get into like your hunting, your fishing and the business, but I'm intrigued by this a little bit because of your history there. Do you ever have like young women reach out to you and ask for advice or, how you kind of navigated those waters?
So actually the bullying and everything's not something I talk about that often.
Okay.
So once in a while I will have someone reach out, like after I do an interview or a podcast, because I talk about it more openly, I guess, on these kind of platforms as opposed to social media, like a little square picture post, because I don't want people to think I'm just after sympathy or after, attention, because it's definitely not that way. And I love the life that I have now. And I love my life back then too, but I just feel like I have more purpose and I'm just doing more fun things and really enjoying life now. So I try to focus on that stuff as opposed to in the past.
Okay. And is that kind of how you filter what you'll do? Because I saw you a couple of weeks ago, you were out at Traeger headquarters doing an event out there. And I've seen you do some other ones. Is that kind of how you filter through what you want to do? Am I going to have fun at that?
Yeah, so I only work with very few companies in the outdoor space, and it's always companies that, first off, I already use and love their product. Usually I follow them before they ever find me. But I already use and love their product, and it's a product that I firmly believe in, and the people, their values align with mine. So it's kind of a whole checklist. I know people ask me all the time, do you make great, can you make really good money, promoting things online? And my answer is yes, you can, if you're willing to peddle any kind of product out there. But if you're picky and you want to align with only companies that align with you and your values, it's a much narrower niche.
Yeah. And do you find that, you might give up a little short-term gain by using that mentality, but do you feel like long-term that's a better thing to build better relationships with those companies?
Oh, definitely. I would say, well, first off, I think in the long term, it's better for yourself and to build a relationship with yourself, because you have to have values and to stand for something. So it just makes me personally feel better about myself. But also on the second part of that question, yes, definitely. I feel like the relationships that I built with these companies are actually built on having a relationship and not just, okay, you're going to pay me to promote your product, but there's nothing really, no substance between us. And who's to say they're not going to just replace me with someone, tomorrow, if we don't have a relationship there and we don't believe in the same things.
And that's something, we've even learned along the way is we have our best results with the people that we also become friends with. We go out to dinner with, text back and forth with. It's more than just a business transaction of, we're going to pay you, please promote our product.
Yeah. And the great thing is I feel like the companies that I work with, I want to do a good job for them. And because I love their products, so I have no problem talking about it. And it's things that I'm using every single day anyways. So it's so easy and it authentically fits in with my lifestyle. So I share, like Traeger you mentioned, I literally cook on that at least once a day, every single day. So I don't share about it every single day, but I share about it a lot because I'm using it 365 days a year. So it's something I'm using all the time.
And I think something different with you is you kind of grew up in the outdoor world, correct?
I did, yes.
So you grew up hunting. It wasn't something that as you were an adult, you're like, hey, there's an opportunity there. I can go, market my services or make money in that industry. You were already in the community with where did you get started on hunting? Was it through your dad?
Yeah, so my dad's a big deer hunter, and when I was younger, he had dogs, so he would hunt raccoons a lot, and so I would go raccoon hunting with him when I was younger, and that was my first introduction to hunting, and then he would take us deer hunting as well, and so I was always involved in some aspect of it, and then as I got older, I was able to deer hunt, New York State, 14, so I was able to deer hunt as, I got older. And it was just always something that I really enjoyed because I love being outside. So we have the dairy farm, we have the maple syrup farm. And so everything just all ties in so naturally with the hunting and fishing world as well. So yeah, I started doing it when I was really young, and it really strengthened the bond between my dad and I. And my sister actually all the time, she's like, you and dad always seem so close. Like, you guys are always talking to each other. I'm like, yeah, but I feel like that's because I'm so into hunting. And so we always have something to talk about. And then I was also, so I started driving tractors when I can't remember if it was the summer I was 13 or 14, but I was either 13 or 14 when I started driving tractors. And I was the first grandchild girl out of his dad, my grandfather. So I wanted to drive a tractor, and my dad convinced my grandpa that I could do it even though I was a girl. So I started driving tractors, and I think just wanting to be so actively involved in the farm was another thing that built the relationship with my dad. So I'm like the tomboy before he had a boy, right? So like the boy he had before he actually had a boy.
So let's dive into that family business a little bit. So from my understanding, your dairy farm is one of the larger ones in the state of New York.
That is correct. Yep.
And then how you go from there into the maple syrup farm, is that tied into the dairy farm in any way, or is that something separate that you and your family did?
Yep. So my great grandfather sailed over from Switzerland in the early 1900s, and he was heading to California. Only got as far as New York. The hills out here reminded him of home, so he's decided to settle down, and he started working. And then he ended up buying a couple of cows. And then he had my grandfather, some other kids, but then they bought more cows, more farmland. And then when my grandpa had my dad, they started a partnership between my dad, two of his brothers, and my grandpa. So they started the dairy farm. And then they always did maple syrup as a hobby. Just my great grandfather, they tapped trees using horses, and they used a gathering tank. So they would use the buckets, collect all the buckets with the horses. And then my grandfather carried on that tradition, but instead of using the horses, he switched over to a tractor. And then in like 1990s, my dad decided he wanted to do maple syrup as make it an actual business. So he switched everything over. So he had tubing instead of the buckets, and we use a vacuum system. So the maple syrup, I guess this is a really long way of getting to the answer. So the maple syrup is my dad's business.
Okay. Because I'm always intrigued by family businesses, because obviously I'm second generation. And, a lot of times from the outside, everything looks like it's so great to be part of a family business, but I know personally there's always a lot of challenges. And talking to other people that are involved in a family business, it's not always as glorious, or whatever you want to call it, as it seems from the outside. What are some of the challenges that you guys have had working with like family on both sides, the dairy farm and the maple farm, or the maple syrup farm?
So I'll start with the maple because that's the easier one. So the only people that really work on the maple side are me, my dad, and my brother. And luckily, we all get along really, really well. We all kind of have our own roles within the maple syrup. So we haven't run into any family issues there, thankfully. And then on the dairy side, it's kind of a complete opposite story, because now I'm the fourth generation, but they're actually trying to sell the farm because it's owned by my dad, two brothers, and my grandma, which some of them are ready to retire. And as you mentioned before, it's a very, very large farm. So I would love to take over the farm because I would love to get into the agritourism space, but I just don't have the kind of money or financial backing to actually be able to afford that. So there's that with the passing on to like different family members, because there's the other families, they don't have children that, want to be involved in the farm. So it's really hard. You have to buy them all out. And then just with the different people, everyone has their different mindsets, and there's a lot of butting heads. So you see that family dynamic where it's much harder to work with each other. And I hear this among dairy farming families a lot because they're generational farms. And, as it goes on and goes from generation to generation, it just becomes more of a headache, a headbutting war, which is really sad. But so that's probably a little too much information right there. But yeah, so it's really, really tough working with family.
Yeah. And we encounter that, and we all get along very well, but we also at times have different ideas of what we think is best for the company. Mm-hmm. And we probably all get my brother and I probably get this from my dad. We're both very stubborn sometimes in our ways.
Yes.
So it's neither one of us want to back down. And, we still work very well together, but there are challenges, as we grow and continue to try to build upon what we have when we see things a little bit differently.
Yes, and that's a much better way of putting it than I put it, because it's just everyone sees everything's a little bit differently, and so that's where the headbutting comes in, because it's really hard, especially when one of them doesn't want to back down, or people they really like their way and they're kind of married to that idea, and so it's really tough.
So, if I understand correctly, you're also involved in the marketing side of it.
For maple syrup, I am.
You're back. Okay. Okay. So how has that changed, over the last, you said your dad started that in the 90s, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how has like the marketing side of that changed with social media and just different things along the way?
Yeah, so I got my degree in marketing from Rochester Institute of Technology, so a tech school. And I started marketing I actually left the farm for a little bit, and I went to Buffalo, and I worked in the city of Buffalo for a financial firm doing their marketing. And then after working there for a few years, I just decided this is not for me. I can't work in the city. I don't like living in an apartment. I need wide open spaces. So I moved back home, and I started the maple syrup website. It's like 2.5 years now ago that I started the maple syrup website, and we sell everything not currently, we did sell everything wholesale. So direct to packaging companies, and then they would package it as any company or different brands that would want it, and then they would put it on the store shelves. So I started this website, and my dad and brother, they kind of laughed at me and said I was wasting my time. But I stuck with it. And then I started the Facebook and Instagram, and they grew. And then I started YouTube last year, and YouTube really, really helped me in terms of sales. So the marketing has been increasing. My marketing efforts, I've been putting more effort into it because my sales have been increasing. And especially with the YouTube, I've been doubling my sales like every year since I started, which I guess isn't saying much because it's only been 2.5 years. But I already beat last year's sales, and we're only in the month of May for this year. So it's
I
really
assume
picked up.
Your dad and brother are no longer laughing at it.
Yeah, no, they're excited about it now because also they like to go to Vermont every year to check out other producers. And a lot of other producers actually follow my channel, which is called Maple Farmer on YouTube. So they'll walk into a place now and they'll be recognized. And so they're like, oh my gosh, this person, they watch your channel. They know who we are. I'm like, yeah, social media, I'm telling you, it's a good thing. And now they want to sell everything retail, direct to consumer, which we have a pretty large maple farm. So I'm like, you guys have to start, helping me with the marketing. If we want to sell everything direct to consumer.
Well, I know I just placed an order the other day for the entire, I think it's a kit, the pancake mix, the syrup, and then there was something else that was included with it. Mm-hmm. And I showed it to my kids, and they're excited. So I'll let you know how that goes.
I was going to say, you didn't try it yet?
It hasn't come in yet. I just ordered it the other day.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah. I'll definitely
I'll have to check the tracking on that. I can't believe you don't have it.
Yeah, I will. I'll definitely let you know. But that was one of the reasons I was interested in the marketing side is when my brother and I took over from my dad, the whole marketing platforms were changing. Mm-hmm. And trying to get him to invest in a website. And this is even before social media. I can't imagine if we would have had to try to talk him into that. Because back then everything was print advertising. Mm-hmm. You get your gun. Like for us, we get our product or guns to a magazine. They run the ads. Hopefully you can get some editorial, and that's how everything was done. So I wondered if you kind of went through that same thing of getting your dad on board or even brother to buy into the whole digital marketing side of things.
Yeah, I just did it. I didn't even ask them. I just did it.
Sometimes that's the best way.
Yeah, and it's working out. And I actually had Fox Weather reach out to me. So I did a live national interview with them during maple season this year, which is pretty exciting. But I was really pumped about it. So,
well, and I think that's a great lesson there of, where you had somewhat of a personal brand that you had built up through your fitness modeling and then through Instagram and different things. So you kind of had a leg up then when you started the YouTube channel and different things, being able to promote it through that. And I was just on a business call the other day where they talked about how important it is to build up you obviously have to build your company brand, but also to build up your personal brand. And you can almost act as your best, I hate using the word influencer, but you can almost act as your best influencer for that brand because nobody's going to be more passionate about it than you are. Are these all things that you had thought of prior or just they kind of happened, or did you have a plan in place?
Yeah, this is probably from a marketer. This is not a good answer. It just kind of happened for me. So I never had a plan to try to get into the outdoor industry at all. I kind of got lucky with that. And yeah, I just kind of put everything out there and didn't really have a plan and strategy for any of it. It just kind of happened.
So do you see, like in our industry, you have the quote unquote gun bunny and all that type stuff, the huntress, and different terms that have been thrown at different people. Mm-hmm. How do you kind of look at that part of it? I'm trying to go about this delicately because I know firearm companies, we are very limited on what we can do on social media. Mm-hmm. So we do have to find different avenues to help promote our products on there. But I think like the difference in you is that this has always been you and it's not something that you're just trying to capitalize on. Do you have an issue with that side of it, or do you just think that's all part of it?
So in terms of marketing, I mean, sex sells. It always has. So I completely understand where some companies are coming from. But for me, I would never want to be a part of a company that uses that to sell their product, just because that's not how I am. And I don't want to be associated with people that are that way, because to me, being authentic and real and genuine are number one. And I think people can see right through when you're lying and who you really are. And do you really want to attract the audience that is there just to stare at some girl like half dressed, or do you want to capture the audience that is actually like actively trying to be involved in the outdoors? So I'm going more after the people that actually are going to buy and be involved in the outdoors and that are actually enjoying it, as opposed to just being clickbait.
Yeah. And that makes a lot of sense. And that's even been our approach, where we want it to be somebody like, if we have them do an appearance for us at a trade show or somewhere, that they can also have a very knowledgeable conversation about the product. Because like you said, I think that it can be exposed very quickly that the person, has a very limited base or knowledge of what they are actually using. Mm-hmm. So, and I think early on, that was something we had talked about, is like how authentic you seem to the outdoor world, to your farming world, and just to who you are, which is, have you always been that way? Or was that instilled to you by like your parents or family members?
I think I've always been this way, and it's probably a curse that I always speak my mind as well. So I always say exactly what I'm thinking. But yeah, it just doesn't pay to pretend to be something you're not. And as you said, people can see right through it. So that's another thing, is I never pretend to be an expert at anything, because I know I'm not. I'm not even close to being an expert in anything or any aspect of my life. So I never try to come across that way, because I'm always learning. And I think most people are always learning. So it's good to be transparent of where you actually are.
And I think that probably helps in your following, as they know that what they see is what they get. And if you recommend a product or, use a product, you're using that in, like you said before on the Traeger, you're using that in everyday life.
Mm-hmm. And that's another thing. I work with these companies, but it's inevitable. There's always going to be a company that I absolutely love their product, but they might have another product that I don't care for. And if that's the case, like, I do not promote the product that I don't like, so I try to stick with, I have the brands that I work with, but if they have a product within their brand or line that I don't really care for, you will never see me trying to push that or sell that in any way.
That's pretty cool. Do you ever give them feedback if it's a product you don't like?
Oh, yeah. I give feedback all the time. And I don't know if they like the feedback. I like to think they do, because I want them to make improvements to it, because it's products that I use every day. So
I know in our case,
to be the best.
Yeah, in our case, we want feedback like that. Like when we send a product out to somebody, mm-hmm. If they see something that they're like, why would you guys do this? Or why don't you do this? A younger version of me probably didn't want that feedback, because I was too worried about somebody saying that this product is no good.
Right.
But the older I get, the more I realize that feedback is the only way we can get better. I was going to ask you too earlier and I missed it. On your farm, what's been the most challenging over the last couple years with the state of the world? Has it affected you guys at all?
I think it's really hard. So in terms of social media and farming, I think in recent years, which maybe it's just because it's social media, I actually get more backlash when I post anything about dairy farming than I do if I post about hunting, which blows my mind because I just think people are so disconnected with where their food comes from. Where, if you look back probably 40, 50 years, everyone was, their grandfather or great grandfather was a farmer, where at this point there's so many people that they never knew that generation that used to farm or homestead. And so they're just so disconnected with their food. And it makes it tough sometimes because you get a lot of, anti-farming, PETA, all that kind of things that don't actually know what goes on at a farm. And you can't have discussions with them. Trust me, I've tried. I've tried to have actual conversations with these people. And it's really hard because they're so stuck in their mindset. And I've actually offered people to come out to the farm and I would give them a tour. And they don't want any part of it. They just want to backlash or talk bad about it and try to push their view when really they have no experience around farming or how it works or, how the animals are treated, nothing. So I would say that's really difficult. And farming is our livelihood. So if your cows aren't, for us, if your cows aren't happy, you're not going to produce much. So you really need to take better, really good care of your animals. And honestly, all the animals, at least on our farm, are treated better than people. So we truly, truly love all of our animals, and we try to get employees that absolutely love the animals as well. So,
well, and I think for it to be in its fourth generation and still in the family, that there has to be more than you guys are doing it more from, just profits. You guys are very invested into it from the animal welfare all the way down. I would have never guessed that you got more backlash on that though than like hunting or shooting or something like that.
I know. I would have never thought that either until I saw with my own eyes, and then Instagram started censoring me when I would post things about the dairy farm, and then actually even maple syrup. So this one post that I posted, I fully clothed, right? Because I'm in the woods working in a snowstorm. So all you see is my face. Everything else is completely covered. And they took down a post because I wrote how sap is about 2% sugar content. And they took it down saying it was sexual or nudity in I'm trying to think of the exact words they used, but they said it was sexual or nudity content. And I'm like, I don't understand. And there was no way to argue with it or to try to get it posted back up again. So it blew my mind. So if you know anyone at Instagram who I can talk to, let me know.
That's insanity.
I know.
Especially when you see what they allow on Instagram.
Oh, I know. I don't know how
on
any
that side of it. Yeah.
Oh.
It's incredible that that's what they flagged. Did you ever have any fear of when you start posting, the dairy stuff is part of your family, so I don't think you probably had fear there, but did you ever have any fear of backlash when you started posting hunting or shooting or being involved in the outdoor world, that it was going to negatively affect your business?
No, because we sell to a co-op, but also when I started posting on Twitter was my first platform that I used, and all I posted about was farming and hunting. And that's actually how I guess I got into the outdoor industry. I had a couple companies reach out to me through Twitter. But yeah, that's what I started posting to begin with. So I guess I never had any fear of backlash because I wasn't open to that world yet. I'm just a small town country girl that never was open to the world or really, backlash from anywhere. So I guess it never even crossed my mind.
So I just saw the picture you sent the other day of the turkey. Mm-hmm. Is that your favorite? What's your favorite hunt or favorite thing? Or is it deer because that's what you grew up doing with your dad?
No, so turkey is hands down my favorite thing to hunt, and I just love how interactive it is. And the funny part is so I started turkey hunting when one of my friends introduced it to me. So now I've introduced my dad to it. So it's kind of a full circle hunting experience, which is really fun that I actually got to introduce him to something instead of him always introducing me to everything.
So where did you learn to do all the cooking and grilling and smoking from? Was that something that your dad taught you or something you learned on your own?
No, I wish someone taught me. No, I learned on my own. And as we were talking offline before we started recording, yeah, I've made a lot of cooking mistakes. And one of the best ones or funniest ones, wasn't the best tasting, but I was smoking an entire turkey on the Traeger, and I don't even know how many hours I was smoking it for, forever. And it only had about 2 degrees left to finish. So I sat down on the couch. Big mistake. Never do that. Sat down, fell asleep, and I woke up about 4 hours later, and the turkey was just completely dry. It tasted terrible. So I ended up making it into a turkey pot pie, which if you ever screw up a recipe, like, turkey pot pie is the way to go because, that gravy can really add some moisture into it. And it just covers all the bad that you screwed up on.
Well, I need that because my family will tell you I am not good anywhere near a kitchen or a grill.
Yeah. No.
Occasionally I can do it if I'm using like a Traeger.
Yeah.
But even then, they'll be like, you need to call so-and-so and make sure you don't screw it up or ask them how to do this. And then they give me very definitive points. Okay, do this, this, and this. Because nobody trusts me, which is probably a good thing. So
do you have a meat thermometer?
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say that's the number one thing that completely changed my cooking because growing up we were always taught everything had to be overdone, like no meat can be pink, the chicken was drier than dry, like everything overcooked, like super paranoid about some kind of disease laying in this meat. But so I got a meat thermometer, and ever since then that has completely done a 180 to my cooking, and now everything tastes so much better. Imagine that, overcooked food.
Yeah, I just got to keep practicing, I think. Have you ever, not to go down a rabbit hole, but have you ever tried or been around when Andy, the flip-flop guy, does his cooking of like venison legs?
No.
Oh, you'll have to, I first tried it at Winter Strong at Sorinex.
Yeah.
But it's just a method of cooking that he uses that has been passed down from his grandfather's, I think his grandfather's family. And you'll have to try it because it's the best tasting deer legs I've ever had.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah, you'll have to look it up, and I'll send you a link. But literally all he does is cooks the one side of the deer leg for about 60 seconds. And he seasons it and does all that, puts it on a hot fire for about 60 seconds, flips it over, and you cut that like a very thin layer off. And as you're doing that, the other side is cooking on the grill.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, once you get that cut off, you season that side again, and then you flip it over and just keep repeating the process.
Okay, yeah.
I'm simplifying it, but he has a process with his sauce that he uses. And there's a couple things that he highly recommends, but it's a pretty interesting thing to try. It's great like when you have a bunch of people together because an entire group can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the food tastes phenomenal on it. We're going to be doing it. I'm leaving for Summer Strong here in a couple of days. We'll be doing it down there, so I'm looking forward to it.
I wanted to go to Winter Strong. I was planning on going to it this year, but of course it fell right in line with when we were tapping trees. So I RSVP'd yes, I was going, and then I had to text him like a couple days before. I'm like, I was trying so hard to come, but I'm not going to make it. I was so bummed.
Have you been there at all in the 4 years they've had it?
No, I've never been, and I've always wanted to.
You would absolutely love it. This is the first year I've ever gone to Summer Strong, which is kind of not really, it's the same premise, but completely different layout from what they do at Winter Strong. So I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
So-
that's what I was told. He told me about Summer Strong, and I was like, maybe it's during. I think it's still in May, isn't it?
Yeah, it's we're recording this on May 16th, and it's this coming weekend.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Because when he sent me the dates, I'm like, that's turkey season.
Yeah. One question that I like to ask a lot of guests is, I always feel like there's some event in a person's life that, good or bad when it happened, is one of those things that they can draw on now as an adult, or can look back to and be like, that changed my life, or that put me on the path that I'm on now. Do you have any significant event like that?
I don't really think I have an event like that. I had a lot of different things. Probably my biggest mistakes are the ones that made the most impact on me, because that's what I remember the most.
Okay.
But I would say it's not really an event. It's people that had the most impact on me. So my grandfather had a huge, huge impact on me. We worked together every single day on the dairy farm. And so like him and my dad are the most impactful people in my life. So I wouldn't say it was really an event. It was more people.
Oh, that's pretty cool though, and now that you're able to work with him, that's not everybody can say that. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we don't always get along, but for the most part, we do. But there's always those days. But even those days, I always come home and I'm just grateful that I actually still get to spend time with him and that we do work together, because when I worked in the city, I really, really missed my family. And as much as I don't like New York State politics, I love my family and I could never leave New York when they're here.
Yeah, I can't imagine you work in a big city corporate job.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
Yeah. So something else that I wanted to bring up is, we've kind of talked offline a little bit back and forth, is very similar, like always wanting to learn and be open to new ideas, whether it's business, mindset. Does that also come from your family, or is that something that you've just always been like an inquiring mind, always trying to get better?
I'm just always trying to get better, and I love listening to different podcasts. I know I reached out to you and asked what you recommend, because I really think a growth mindset is important. And I see when I listen to different podcasts or read different books and actually implement what they're saying, my life is tremendously better. So it's just something that, especially in recent years, I've really been focusing on, because like I said, it just makes my life way better than when I don't listen and do those things.
Do you ever get caught in the trap? I know I have, I can get so wrapped up in podcasts and reading books and constantly learning that I just almost use it as a way not to have to take action, because I say, well, I'm going to keep learning this, or I'm going to read this book and then I'll do this. Do you ever get caught in that trap where you almost go down too much that road versus just putting it into action?
Yes, I've definitely done that, and I've learned to take a step back. So now, because I used to read books and I would just be like, oh, this is a great book, but I wouldn't actually put anything that I learned into action, because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to start doing that, and I would make notes, and instead of trying to implement it right away, I would just be like, okay, when I'm done with this book, I'm going to do all these things, but then I wouldn't remember it either, right? So now when I read, I try to actually implement it and write it down right away. Like that day, I'm like, okay, this is what I learned. This is what I need to do tomorrow. Instead of reading something just to kind of check it off the list that I read it or did it.
And I've done that too. I get in the habit of, I check that, this book was recommended to me. I read it. I can check that off, but I don't really put into action anything that it says.
Yes.
So what are some of the, like, for people out there that are looking for books from a mindset or growth minded perspective, what are some of the books that you've read that, not to put you on the spot or anything, but what are some of the books that you've read?
Memory.
Are there any that stick out that?
Yeah. So I love Tim Grover's books. I don't know if you've read any, like Relentless and Winning.
Yeah, I've read both of them. Yes.
Yeah. So I just love his books. I feel like he's I hate saying the word like motivational, but I love how he talks to you, and there's like no BS, and he's just very straightforward and tells you he doesn't tell you what you need to do, but he tells you kind of what you already know, and you're like, I need to put this into action. So loved his books. Oh, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, like, the first time I read one of his books, I'm like, I would almost catch myself reading like certain things he would say. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not practical. Almost like making excuses of why I don't have to do, I'm not going to do that. You know, that's crazy. But then as you read them and you see the people he's worked with, it's like, okay, do I really want to try to maximize what I can do or get to the top? Or do I want to keep making excuses?
Yes, exactly. Because I get in that trap too. And one of the things in his book, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but it's almost black and white, right? So he said he was working with a client and this client wanted to lose weight, and the client would always text him and say, "Can I have this with the fish, or some kind of topping?" And he's like, "You can't switch it just so it's convenient for you. It's like, do you want to lose weight? Yes or no. If the answer is no, or if the answer is yes, you got to do exactly what I told you to do. Fish with no toppings, no extra, sauces, whatever. And if you're not serious about this goal and you don't want to do it, then do whatever you want." He didn't word it like that, but that's pretty much the gist of it.
But I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I know, like, you even posted something the other day about, like, with your workouts, that you needed a workout partner lately because you're having trouble finding motivation to. What do you draw on when you're going through, like, not necessarily motivated to work out or not necessarily, don't want to put the work in? What do you fall back on that gets you through those times?
That something is better than nothing. So even if I go out and I only do like 5-10 minutes, at least I'm doing something as opposed to doing nothing.
And do you find normally once that you go do that first 5 to 10 minutes that the next 30 to 35 come pretty easy?
Yes. It's always the first step that's the hardest.
Because I have found that I can talk myself out of a workout or pretty easily if I have to. But I find if I just get started, and not only does the next 45 minutes go easy, the rest of my day becomes so much better.
Oh, definitely. Same with me. And decisions become easier for me as well. So I can think more clearly. And if I'm trying to be healthier, if I work out, it kind of sets my mood for the entire day and my tone of also what I'm going to put into my body. So it just helps me all the way around.
I can relate to that because, if I don't work out, my food choices go downhill. And then there's a downward spiral effect. My energy levels go down. My mood goes down. And the weird part is it's 100% under my control to fix all that.
Yes. Isn't that the worst? You're like, I just don't feel like doing this. And then when I don't do it, sometimes I'll get into like this little funk. And then, like you said, the energy goes down. My mood goes down. I don't get as much accomplished. And it's all in my control. So what am I doing with my life?
And I would assume some days it's hard for you to get the motivation to work out because is your job on the farm a fairly physical
Yes,
job? Especially
during maple season. That's really hard when you're tapping trees. And then the last thing you want to do is lift.
Because following you on Instagram, it looks like you guys put in some incredibly long hours during that time.
Oh, we do.
Yeah. So it'd have to be a good thing that you guys all get along, because I'd assume that when you start becoming sleep deprived, it'd be easy to be at each other's throats and,
yeah, I
playing
like
a blame game with everybody.
I know. No, that's the one thing about working with my dad and my brother is we're all very, we work together really well, and we all have different, personalities. So we all have our own little role. I'm usually the more, I don't know, I guess upbeat one, always trying to crack jokes, even though half the time they don't think I'm funny, but I laugh at myself. And so we all have our own different roles to work really well together and keep each other kind of in good spirits all throughout the night. Because we work really long nights. It seems
Yeah, because what does a typical day look like when you're during the middle of that season? Is it start early in the morning and finish?
Yeah,
in the
and
middle
finish
of the night,
early in the
or
morning.
How does that?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know. So we all like have full-time jobs, right? So my little brother is a diesel mechanic at Caterpillar. So he gets up, he leaves for work usually around like 6:30 in the morning. And then once he gets home from work, he'll go directly into getting the building ready so that way we could boil maple syrup at night. And a lot of times we're boiling at night until like 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning. So those days, so if you watch any of the YouTube videos, a lot of times he doesn't talk much because the last thing he wants when he's working 22 hours a day is a camera in his face.
Can't hardly blame him.
I know, you can't blame him. So I'm always asking him, I'm like, do you want to talk now? And he always says no. But yeah, he's working really hard. And then dad has a dairy farm and the cows always come first. So he's always at the farm. And then a lot of times if there's something going on at the farm that he needs to run back for, he'll be with us at the shanty like all night long, except for if anything's going on at the farm that he needs to be there. He'll run back down to the farm, take care of what he needs to take care of, and come back. And then I work when it's maple season. So I do marketing as well, as we touched on. But during maple season, I start tapping trees like first thing in the morning when I get up. And then once I'm done, not done tapping trees, but let me back up. Because when we're actually boiling, we're done tapping trees. So first thing in the morning, I go and walk lines to look for any leaks, since we run a vacuum pump to collect all of our sap for the maple syrup. And so I'll walk the woods until Warren gets home from work, and then I'll get over to the shanty and help him get ready to boil.
So is it just you three on the maple syrup side?
So we do have some people that will come in and help us tap and check for leaks, but that's about it. So yeah, it's pretty much us three.
Okay. So do you guys have to handle the shipping and everything?
Yes. So my mom, every single order that comes through, I see, and then I send everything to my mom. Well, I send all the shipping labels to my mom, and my mom packages everything.
So how much pride do you guys take in doing that as a family?
It's really fun, but sometimes we get at each other's throats a little bit because we're like, no, it should be done this way. But no, it's really fun. And I think that's why we love it so much, is we do have a lot of pride in our work. And a lot of things people don't, another thing that a lot of people don't know is that pretty much all of our equipment in the shanty, if you see it, it's all from North America. So it's all made in USA or made in Canada.
So that's pretty awesome. And that, kind of reminds me, even like when we got started in the firearms business, my dad started it, but my grandpa would come in and help wherever needed to be. Then my mom was, answering the phones and doing all these different things. And looking back, we were a much smaller company then, but there was a lot of pride and a lot of fun times and a lot of stories that we still tell out of there, which is one of the things we've lost as we've grown a little bit. But listening to you talk about that brings back a lot of memories of some of the stories we had. Mm-hmm. And, and just the pride of your name going on every single package going out the door.
Yeah. And I think what makes them really proud too is when they walk into other places and people actually recognize them, which is like a lot of, the social media YouTube thing. But then we get a lot of people that ask specifically for our product, which we sell it most of it wholesale, but they say they want our name on the product, which is really humbling because it's exciting. It's like I said, it's really humbling.
So what is next for you and the farms? Is it something that you want to eventually take? I know you said the dairy farm is very tough because of the capital it required to take that over. Mm-hmm. But do you eventually want to take over the maple syrup farm?
So I'm hoping. So my dad owns it, and then my brother just bought in a couple years ago. So I'm hoping when we can find another woods for sale, they'll let me buy in. So we'll see how that goes.
So where is the best place? Like if people want to follow along with everything you have going on, because like I said, it's very hard to pinpoint what exactly you're going to be doing next. I've seen you, like I said, at Traeger. I think I saw you at First Form. I saw you, all over doing different things. Where's the best place that people can find you?
Yeah, so social media is the best place. I never know what I'm posting because I post what I'm doing in the moment that day. So your guess is as good as mine of what I'm up to for the coming week. But yeah, so social media at Nikki Boxler across all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and then on YouTube, I'm Maple Farmer.
And what is the website if they want to go place an order?
Boxlermaple.com. That's B as in boy, OXLER, maple.com.
Well, I can't wait to get my package in and try it, and I will let you know how it goes. But I imagine it's going to be very good. So,
Oh, I hope so. If not, you better let me know.
I will do that.
I know someone who can get you some more. No, it should be really good.
No, I'm looking forward to it because I've talked to a couple people that have ordered it and they absolutely love it. And I imagine I will as well. How can I go wrong? Pancakes and maple syrup.
Oh,
I'm not sure where that fits into my diet, but I'll worry about that some other time.
Okay, no, first off, maple syrup is really healthy. I don't know if you knew this. It's actually healthier than, hold on, I'm going to pull up all the stats on it. It's actually healthier than honey. Because a lot of people think honey is really healthy. And it has a lot of antioxidants in it. And it's really great for fuel for when you're like working out because it has a sustained release of like energy. So yeah, it's really healthy for you.
Well, now it's a no-brainer that I need more of it.
I know. Yeah, here we go. I just pulled up my brochure because I can never remember how to word things exactly. But yeah, so it's like a slow burning, prolonged, sustained energy to help fuel endurance events. So that's actually my next marketing push with maple syrup is I really want to push it as for endurance athletes, for people that are running marathons, half marathons, because it's a really good source of fuel. And then it has all those nutrients in it as well.
Yeah, like you said, you hear a lot of times that like endurance athletes will take honey or something like that to keep them sustained without bogging them down.
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, and it has a bunch of amino acids a bunch of amino acids to help repair like muscle damage or anything like that. So it's really good. And like you said, it doesn't bog you down like a lot of those gels that you can buy that I don't even know what are in them. But I know like when I ran the marathons, those would upset my stomach so bad. But maple syrup doesn't do that. So it's really good for endurance.
That is good to know. So before I let you off, a quick question on that. Do you follow a specific like nutrition plan or are you just kind of just eat healthy and the rest will take care of itself?
Yeah, I pretty much just eat healthy and I also splurge a little bit. So I love ice cream. So especially in the summer, I eat ice cream probably once a week. But I think everything in moderation, that's kind of my motto. So I try to eat healthy. I eat whole foods all the time. We cook a lot at home. So we pretty much make everything at home. And
is it a lot of wild game?
Yes, wild game, a lot of beef and from our farm. So we have that. And yeah, it's a lot of like homegrown stuff. And then what we buy from the grocery store is mainly vegetables when the farmer's market isn't around. So in the winter we get all of our vegetables and whole vegetables. We don't really buy anything canned or pre-processed, nothing like that.
Okay. Well, this has been awesome. I appreciate it. Is there anything that we left out or anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I feel like I talked so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for making the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Scott. This was fun.
Yes, it was. Thank you. And as always, thank you guys for listening. And if you have any questions, hit us up at podcast@volquartson.com.